Welcome to Next Step Advanced Sketching Techniques. Today, students, we are going to sketch out a photorealistic fishing scene. A family fishing scene. All right, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is draw a pier. A pier is also called a dock, and a pier is made with driftwood to save on building expenses. To draw the frame of the pier, I have just drawn a square that is stretched. Squares have two equal sides. A pier is going to have two posts. Posts are also going to be drawn with squares which have two equal sides, but the top end of the square is not needed because this line is built into the frame of this big square. So in order for us not to waste ink, we'll put that end here and that end here. To make it continue to be symmetrical, we will add additional such lines. And what is the utility of a pier if you don't have water? So for water, we're going to draw a series of upside down blunted U's which are connected at the trough. You want to make sure that all of your U's are uniform, the same size, because water is uniform as it flows across the land. Next, for a fishing scene, we need fish. So let's go ahead and draw a fish. If you've been fortunate enough to see my cruise ship vacation at Next Step Advanced Sketching, you'll see there's a fish in there. Fish do have noses, just like you and I. You and I meaning the people, myself and you, not the letters you and I. We will use an I a little bit later in this pier. Fish have noses, like I said, similar to us. They also have tall dorsal fin, identical to the dorsal fin of a shark, just smaller, just scaled down. Speaking of scales, fish have scales, and we're just going to do the hatching technique, cross-hatching. The scales are made of modified natural rubber to keep the fish from getting wet. Fish, a little science for you, are going to breathe in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. We can write that as CO2. And we'll draw an arrow as it breathes it in. They take the oxygen and then they leave, or they exhale, CO, which is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is just a harmless byproduct of cellular and aquatic respiration. Fish have giant noses, and the reason they have giant noses is so that they can smell delicious food. Today's scene borrows from my memory as I'm stitching in some personal memories. I went on a fishing trip with my grandmother and my grandmother's friend, who I consider family. I learned so much from him. I wasn't allowed to hold the fishing pole that we had. Let's start by drawing my grandmother. And as you may or may not know, my grandmother preferred to wear a ghost costume everywhere she went, which was basically a white sheet. And she cut out a hole in the top, and then she hairsprayed her hair with a ton of hairspray, so that in a beautiful way it just shot up out through the top of her ghost costume. It was a beautiful sight to see and could be a little tickly. She also cut out holes for her eyes and stitched in some black mesh to see. Grandmas still need to see, correct? Correct. And grandmother needed to breathe, so she cut out a mouth hole. Mesh was sewn into the mouth hole to still provide the privacy that she longed for. Grandma also wore a mitt over one of her hands. Just one of her little things that she did. And she had long, flabby skinned legs, but more often than not, she wore these beautiful red sandal high heel slippers, which if only I had If I had these when I was in school or just going to get a hot dog from the hot dog shop, I would have been the most popular person in that hot dog shop or in the grocer. On this day, Grandma had a couple of ghost costumes. She would hang them in her closet. She was holding the fishing pole. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw back across her body with this hand and this hand together holding the fishing pole. Now, this part of the sequence really is going to separate the novices from the professionals as far as sketching. You want to make sure you get the fingers and thumb arranged just so. The thumb is going to be the largest finger and it's going to be on the outside of the hand. And I'm just using lowercase c's for this end and then flipped lowercase c's for this end. For the fishing reel, I'm going to do a upside down C and then an upside down C that is flipped with respect to the vertical axis. And then a big case L, which is rotated to the left approximately 190 degrees. And this is the handle where you reel in the fish, where you catch your fish. And there's also going to be another square that's missing the top side, and that's for the reel underneath. Now we're going to put another upside down C here, and then its mirror image C here, and then darken that in. That's just going to show you how the reel, the line rotates. Now going up above for a fishing pole, again, pay close attention. If you need to take a break and just watch, that's completely okay. Now we're going to take an upside down C, another upside down C. You'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. Upside down C, upside down C, upside down C, upside down C. The fishing line. The fishing pole is impotent without the fishing line. The fishing line is what connects the hook to the fishing pole. So here we're just going to draw the fishing line coming down into the water, and then we'll draw a hook. A hook's going to be an upside down C and then a flipped with respect to the vertical axis, upside down C, move that for you, and then a smaller or little or baby upside down C, and then its mirror image, or a flipped upside down C with respect to the vertical axis. And then a lowercase I, missing the dot. We can put the dot inside of the fish's nose so that we're not wasting any ink. And then we're going to do the letter J. But at the end of the J, we're going to do an upside down little V. For bait, we always used what were called Cheez-Its. And we would Cheez-Its crackers, or the generic kind. And we're just going to do a rectangle. A rectangle has 4 equal sides. And we used a few Cheez-Its, which we tied together, or my grandmother's friend ran string through the Cheez-Its. This was an ingenious idea. I always said he was a genius, and I said, Grandma's friend, you should really recommend this to a magazine. We could be world famous, like the Sedan sisters. And maybe this fish is swimming along. Now, one of the things I want to teach my students is we can't sketch action, or we can't draw movement with drawings, but we can draw movement lines or action lines. And these are now trademarked, so please do not use that term, but you're welcome to do action lines. One thing to be careful about with fish and hooks is they're sharp. They're super sharp. You can cut your fingers with them, and perhaps that would be a good segue for me to kind of ease in and explain what's wrong with my finger here today. I just had a little bout of, I lost self-control for a moment, but I'm glad I did, because I was trying to sketch the lower half, so the lower torso of my grandmother's friend, just as an homage to him and how I remember him appearing physically. And I missketched part of his body, and it threw myself into a rage, because I hold myself to a high standard, and I hold you to a high standard. If you do come to my house for an advanced next step dedicated one-on-one sketching seminar, I will hold you to a high standard. Anyway, I took this this razor blade and just forcefully pushed it into my pointer finger here. So I am in a little pain today. I do apologize about that, but discipline is important. I wouldn't have been able to draw this with such elegance and sophistication had I not disciplined myself. All right, so moving on. Also in attendance this day, during this fishing scene, was my grandmother's friend, and my grandmother's friend shaved most of his head. He did have ear, but the inside part of the ear is dark, correct? Correct. Why is that? Well, that's because sunlight does not enter the ear hole. Ah, my grandmother's friend and my grandmother, what wonderful memories that I have of them. My grandmother's friend was lucky to have beautiful jet black locks of hair, but he didn't cut the ones in the back. He shaved everything else except for the hair around the nape of his neck. And he hairsprayed it out, maybe similar to my grandmother. He refused to wear shirts, did not like to wear shirts, so we will draw him realistically without a shirt. He had a nipple pair, also called two nipples, which most of us do have that, and he had a really giant belly button. His belly button was wide open. Careful here. If you're sketching along and keeping up, first of all, congratulations. Message me if you're able to. He did have underarm hair, which is a cultural choice. And he wore cut-off jean shorts. He said it gave him more room for his boys. I have wrestled with this for many years. I always thought I was his only quote-unquote boy. Once I decipher that or get to the bottom of it, I'll let you know. On this day, it's likely that my grandmother's friend was consuming beers. So here's just a beer, maybe a famous domestic beer that he's enjoying. I do not drink alcohol, but admire his manliness in drinking alcohol. Now, one thing to do with dogs is we're going to do a letter L that's flipped with respect to the vertical axis and then rotated 90 degrees towards the right or clockwise. We're going to continue this, but we're going to break it up so that they don't align on the next row. Row, R-O-W, is just another way to describe how you move in a boat if you don't have an engine. Lost at sea, you have two choices, just like you do in life. You can row or you can just wade helplessly. The choice is yours. And then notice I'm not drawing wood over his legs. Let's add some leg hair, as he certainly had some, and maybe a button there. And he certainly had arm hair. And occasionally he would wear a bandana, and you know what? He did wear a bandana when he was fishing, and I'm proud of myself for remembering this. There's his bandana, and it was tied in the back. This was his fishing bandana. Grandma did all the fishing, and he did all the drinking. What is a nice day of fishing if you don't have the sun bearing down on you? So to draw a sun, we're going to do a little more complicated than at first it looks. We're going to do a gentle open face letter C and then a lowercase I, which is upside down. Now you're starting to appreciate the benefits of paying for this class, aren't you? Little tricks like that. Also in attendance this day was yours truly, just myself. And I parted my hair with such dedication and focus and intensity that every strand, we have billions of hairs on her head. I would hate to have to count them all. But every single strand was accounted for. And of course, I have ear and eyebrows, which are going to be a series of really small lowercase i's without the dots. We can add the dots so as not to waste them up here. For the eyes, we're doing a C that's upside down, and then a flipped upside down C with respect to the vertical axis for both. The retina, which is the dark center part, which is how we see black and white colors, is going to be the letter O lowercase and darkened in with the ink displacement device. The nose is the hardest anatomical organ to draw. There is another one that's really hard to draw, but the more you see it, the easier it is to draw, and I found that to be the case. I had an essential mustache. When I say essential, I mean there was hair on my lip that I arranged to be there, and so I called it a mustache, and I was proud of it. Surprised that the ladies didn't respond the way that I thought they would. And I loved to wear a pair of short shorts. They were blue, so as to give some contrast, I'll color those in. And I also super glued leg hair or shavings from my grandmother's friend. And that was my right and my choice. I was allowed to have a sugar packet this day for sustenance. And here I am holding it with my imagination thinking, what can I do with this before I eat it? Can I turn it into a flying kite? I was not allowed to talk or interact with my grandmother or my grandmother's friends, so I used my imagination. All right. Also, on a beautiful day, you expect to see birds. Birds are tricky. Follow with me if you can. If you can't, that's fine. Birds are going to have paws, just like dogs. And they're going to have beaks. Maybe this bird is jealous that Grandma's about to catch a nice, delicious, munchful, succulent, juicy fish dinner. And what I can do now is kind of draw into the future. We can't draw the passage of time with drawings. That's ridiculous. But I'm going to do what's called and this will be trademarked, a segmented drawing. So this is going to show you the plate later that day of the delicious fish that she caught and that we ate. Well, I had a fourth of a piece of white bread, and here's where a chunk of the fish and another chunk that they ate, and then there was just like innards and stuff. I'd like to look this up. I think it might be more appetizing for me even to look at at dinner if the fish is first cleaned, and then there were scales everywhere. But nonetheless, Grandma and her friend, my grandmother's friend, did eat. You could just maybe see a piece of Grandma in this picture, and then maybe, because this is just showing you a zoomed in picture, maybe my grandmother's friend's belly button and his nipple here, and then he had a big belly button, all gathered around the table. All right, so we have a nice fishing scene here. In attendance this day were yours truly, my grandmother's friend who just enjoyed drinking, and of course my grandmother. My grandmother did the fishing and was able to catch a delicious fish on this day using her and my grandmother's friend's creative idea for bait, which were cheese crackers with holes in the middle. I was allowed to entertain myself with and eat this sugar packet. Now looking back, I wonder if this bird wanted my sugar packet. We can't draw want, and we can't draw emotions or desire in sketching, but we can draw want lines. Want lines are going to be almost like the paragraph symbol, or maybe a smiley face, aimed going away from the object that wants the object to what the object wants. We can draw some more want lines here. Just kind of randomly placed. All right, now you have 5 seconds to grab your coloring ink devices today, or your ink, so we can color this in and make it even more photorealistic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today I've chosen the color yellow. Hold it up here so you can see it. Yellow is my favorite color. You don't have to use all the colors of the rainbow. Well, what's yellow? Well, of course the sun is yellow. Last time I checked, it's yellow in outer space. It's yellow on Earth. I believe this fishing pole was a nice yellow color. Fishing line is certainly yellow. And hooks have a shiny yellowish tint. These crackers were orange, but orange is the first cousin of yellow, so it's close enough. Of course, fish can oftentimes be yellow, so they can blend in with their environment in the sun. The fish would have maintained its yellow tint or color on the dinner plate there. This bird was not yellow. I was not yellow. My grandmother's friend his skin had started to turn yellow. Stop. What did I not do? I did not color in the nipples, the nipple pointy things, because they are pink. I believe the beer label was yellow. His jean shorts, good job, were blue. And grandmother's arms, that's close enough to skin color, so we can draw them yellow. And her mitten that she wore was yellow. And her beautiful red shoes were yellow, but yellow and red are sisters, so we can certainly make that. What else is yellow? The pier. Wood is essentially yellow, especially if it gets any sun. It kind of absorbs that yellowness. The sun actually sends out yellow, and that's why if you're in the sun all day, your hair will turn yellow. All right, well, there you have it, folks. Today you've just participated in an advanced next step sketching of a fishing day scene. If you were unable to obtain the elegance, the sophistication, the overall professionalism that you see here, keep trying. A lot of it is genetic, but just keep trying. And also be sure to comment if you have any questions. And as I always say, I hope you have a rest of your day.